I believe the mic was on when I sat on it. Hi, everybody. We're really excited to have you here today, and we're really excited to have Janet Evanovich here with us. This is a really big coup for the Texas Book Festival, and I wanted to thank you all for being here. A few notes before we get started. First of all, I'm Cindy Hughes, and I had the pleasure of being the founding director for the Book Festival for its first 8 years, which kind of did feel like 56 in dog years, but we love the festival. So it's always fun to come back and be able to talk with authors. So first of all, before we get started, reminder, please silence your phones. You are free to do social media here. Just use hashtags. I think it's at Texas Book Fest and hashtag TX Book Fest if you want to do social media. And today's session, we'll just do a little conversation for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions from y'all. So if you can come to one of the microphones, I'll help direct traffic on questions for Janet. So let's get started. Now, I feel like I don't even have to introduce her to you, but a short biography of Janet is that she has written a staggering 42 New York Times bestsellers. And I think there's a new one here. And in addition to those great books featuring our friend Stephanie Plum, which is now in her 29th book, she also has many other popular books. She's also the author of a new series called The Recovery Agent. So I'm interested to talk to her about all of this fun stuff. But first of all, so I was going to start by asking Janet if she can give us a little preview of what's going on in Going Rogue, since I don't think very many people have had a chance to read it yet.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Oh.
No?
Maybe move the mic.
Can you hear me now? Can you all hear me now? Okay, you guys in the back, can you see? No. You want to? We have seats up front. You want to come up front? We're all friends. Don't be shy. Come on. You can do it. I have that shirt. Yeah, the pink one. Yeah. Actress, right? Yeah.
There's seats over there.
Right. See, isn't this so much better? There's seating over there.
Some over here too.
Just don't run over the photographer. Okay, so the ones that are left in the back, it's your own fault. You don't, you know what? Can you see me now?
There we go.
Okay. Okay, I love this. See, I like when they give me the handheld because it reminds me of Ranger. I think it's about right, don't you? Yeah. We wanted to talk about
a little preview of what Going Rogue is going on.
Has anybody read it yet? No. One. Oh, the rest of you, get out. Well, I don't want to ruin it. I would rather not talk too much about it, except that Connie plays a large role in this book. I felt like we needed to see more of Connie, because she's been it from day one, and she is missing, and Stephanie has to rescue Connie. So that's a large part of it. And this is also a good Ranger book, too. He plays a large part in it. Yeah. And I always think that's fun. I'm not going to say that I'm a Ranger girl, but he has his moments.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about how Stephanie came to life for you. And it wasn't the first thing you wrote, I know that, but how did Stephanie emerge and become your 29-year companion.
How did Stephanie emerge? Well, as you might know, I started out writing romance. I did 12 romance novels. And it wasn't exactly right. I loved a lot of stuff about writing romance. But after, like, about book 7, I sort of ran out of positions. You know? I mean, I'm a simple person. Put me on my back. I'm very happy. You know, I don't know why you would want to work any harder than you had to. So, and then I had reached an age, I was going through menopause, and I just had a lot more thoughts about murder than I had about sex at that point. So I decided that I needed to be in a different place. And I thought I wanted to go into the crime genre. And I took a year off, did a lot of reading, decided what I loved about romance and wanted to take into the crime with me and what I liked about crime. So one of the things that I liked about crime is that it gave me a lot more freedom. I'm a Jersey girl, and back then, writing romance, you know, there were language restrictions. It was like, you know, the heroine had to say things like, oh, peas and carrots. And I didn't talk like that. So in mystery, they allowed me to, you know, use language that I was more used to growing up in Jersey. And I was searching, trying to find something that I would be comfortable with, because Sue Grafton was out there, Sarah Pretsky was out there, and they were having a lot of success, and I didn't think I could compete with them. So I didn't want to do a cop, I didn't want to do a PI, but I saw the movie Midnight Run with Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro, and it was about a bounty hunter, and I thought, wow, you know, I love the cachet of the term bounty hunter. I didn't know anything about it, but it appealed to me. And so that was really how Stephanie came to be a bounty hunter. I went and I hung out with a bunch of bail bondsmen. I hung out with a bunch of bounty hunters. I was living in Virginia at the time, and these guys would take me into the really dicey sections of DC, you know, and they would say things to me like, okay, so if the shooting starts, open the door and roll. And I never had to use that skill, but, you know, it was there. And so I took what I loved about romance, which was the positive characters. I was allowed to do a little humor in romance at the time. I find it very hard to write without humor. That's the easy part for me. The serious part is hard for me. And I brought with me the bad boy heroes from romance. Joe Morelli and Ranger are bad boy heroes. That means they have their own moral code. They're good guys, but they don't necessarily adhere to the standards of the rest of society. And it makes for a very interesting character, you know, a man of mystery, a little bit more. So that was really how Stephanie came about. I put her in Trenton because I'm a Jersey girl, and I wanted to write about things that I knew about. My parents were living outside of Trenton at the time, and I thought that the burg, which the burg that I write about really doesn't exist. It exists about 60, 70 years ago. It was an Italian enclave. But we have all stood still in time. Stephanie and I, if you've noticed, we don't age. This year, I've gone silver. Silver is the new red. Thank you. So Stephanie, I mean, Stephanie is not me, but I do know a lot about her. I've given her a lot of my embarrassing moments. I've given her some of my history because she comes from a blue-collar family, as do I. She graduated from my alma mater, Douglas College, which is part of Rutgers, the state university in New Jersey. And so I've been with Stephanie for a long time now. When I started her, I wanted to do a series because I had been writing these little romances, and I was writing them so quickly. I was doing 2 and 3 a year, and I would have to paste their names up on my computer screen to remember who I was writing about. And so I thought, I want to do a series. I want to stay with it for a while. And it's like, be careful what you wish for, right? Because, I mean, this poor woman, I have dragged her around for 28 years now. So that's, I think I answered the question and more.
And more, which is great, because those were the directions we wanted to go into.
Give me a mic, and I'm like, you got to drag me off the stage eventually.
Yeah. We want to talk about, we'll get to the guys a little bit more in a minute, of course, but I wanted to talk about my two favorites, Grandma and Lula.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Grandma Mazer, I'm related to her. She is a composite of my Grandma Fanny and my Aunt Lena. And they were just amazing ladies, very strong in their own way, very different. I've sort of smooshed them all together in Grandma Mazer. But when I was a little girl, I lived in this big extended family in a small town. And there wasn't an awful lot to do in this town. I mean, we didn't have country club, but we had two really good funeral parlors. And so in the afternoon, everybody would come over to my Aunt Lena's house, and they'd sit in the kitchen, and they'd drink coffee, and they'd go over the obits. And they would decide who they were going to visit that night. And so sometimes they didn't know anybody that died, but they didn't care. They went anyway. Because that was what you did, right? It was like, you went to bingo 2 nights out of the week, and then you went to the funeral parlor for 4. And then they would come back, and they would be discussing, like, Harry Farber had this great tie, and Marie had excellent makeup, probably, and this was my childhood. This was what I grew up with. So this is Grandma Mazer. And Lula is one of the few characters in the book that is entirely fictional. Most of the characters in the book are composites of people I know, people I met in a bar, television, movies. I'm willing to steal from absolutely anybody. And if you ever get to spend any time with me, live in fear, because it could be you showing up. But Lula was really a walk-on in the first book. I needed somebody to help with information. But when I wrote the second book, I kept thinking about Lula, and there was just something about that character that appealed to me. I saw real growth there, and so she came into the second book, and she's sort of been taking over the series ever since. I have to be real careful that she doesn't overwhelm all the rest of the characters, because she's such a favorite of mine. I can do things with Lula that I can't do with anybody else. And as you all know, she's a former hoe. So a couple years ago, I changed publishers, and I got a new editor who is fantastic. I just love this guy. He's an amazing editor. But it was during the big woke period. It was like woke was just washing over everything, and everybody was terrified. And I have to tell you what I think about woke. I mean, I'm not even politically correct. So anyway, this editor said to me, he had never read any of my books. So he read the manuscript that I handed in for the first time. And he said, she can't be a hoe. He said, I just don't think it's right. She can't be a hoe. And I'm like, but she was always a hoe. I mean, she's been a hoe for 29 years. But she couldn't be a hoe. So my daughter and I sat down, and we tried to think of what she could be if she wasn't a hoe. So we decided she would be an erectile engineer. And then we had to have a little variety. So we thought she could also be an organ grinder. And that was okay. So that took care of Lula then. He was fine with that.
Well, and they just add, I mean, it's so funny how poor Stephanie gets into these scrapes, and the two of them are just whispering in her ear, are we going to go after that guy? I love the way they're such great sidekicks for her and egging her on, too.
What was it again?
Oh, I was just commenting that I love the way the two of them egg her on.
Oh.
And how great they are. Okay, now let's get to our friends one more time, Ranger and Morelli. So let's just take a little poll here. Who's Team Ranger? Ah, okay. Okay, who's Team Morelli? Wow, that's kind of like Stephanie, kind of halfway between, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the big question is, because they're always bouncing back and forth, I just want to ask you this. Do you know in your head which way, if Stephanie will ever make a decision? You don't have to tell us who, but I just wondered if you've thought about it.
Yeah, I've thought about it. You don't expect me to tell you, do you?
No. We just want to know that maybe in a future book. We'll find out. But those two add so much to it. I mean, the mystery and the way they're always taking turns kind of coming to her rescue and dealing with her cars. I love Stephanie's car situation. Things are constantly blowing up, and she ends up with everything from, my favorite was the whatever, in the new book, to Porsches and all these fancy SUVs that Ranger gives her to drive around in. So have you gotten to go out and drive some of those fancy cars?
Yeah, actually, I had that Porsche for a number of years. I had a Porsche 911 Turbo. Yes, you see, I always wanted to be rich and famous. And I am. So I used to have a Porsche 911 Turbo, which is what Ranger drives. And then I became a grandma, and the two kid car seats didn't fit in the 911 Turbo. So I had to trade it in. But I do know many things about that. I don't know if you remember a book where Stephanie had a spell put on her by Joe Morelli's grandmother. It was a sex spell, and she got, all hot and bothered riding in the car with Ranger, and they had to pull into an alley, and they had a scene in there, which I had to research very closely. Probably we should move on.
Well, the other thing was, the action scenes are really fun, too. Do you have fun? I mean, how do you get those together? And I mean, sometimes that seems like that would stump me on how to write a good action scene, but there's always something great going on. And how hard are those to write?
The action scenes? Mm-hmm. The action scenes are actually pretty easy to write. I find when I write, I start with a very basic outline. I know the beginning, I know the end, I know a few things that are going to happen in the middle. And then I just start writing from there, and I fill in details. And there are some parts of it that are always easier for me. I'm a very character person, so the character development and writing about the people is the easy part. The action scenes are fairly easy. They move along for me. It's the nuts and bolts of writing that are hard, that I think make it very easy for you guys to read, like transition. When I'm moving a character from one place to the other, when there's a difference in time, when it's a different day, a different place, I spend lots of time on this. Sometimes I will spend days trying to figure out how to seamlessly and effortlessly move people through space, because this is what allows you to keep reading without stopping and trying to figure things out. I don't think that reading should be hard. I think reading should be enjoyable. It should be a pleasure. I think it's something that you enjoy. I think of myself as an entertainer. I am not a literary person. I'm an entertainer, and I like that. I think that's my place in life. I'm never going to get invited on Oprah. because I don't. Catharsis is not a big part of what I do. I have some of it, but not really. So. So it's kind of the nuts and bolts of writing that I find more difficult than other things. I always have lots of ideas. The ideas are easy, but writing is hard. Writing is a job. It's hard work. I have a routine. I work very hard at it. I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm at my computer with my little dog and my coffee, and I pretty much write all day long. In the morning, that's always the best time for me. I have a good block of time, maybe 2-3 hours, where I get the bulk of my writing done, and then I turn to editing. But I work at it all day. At about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when I have no more ideas, somebody opens my office door and throws bags of chips in at me. And then if that doesn't work, then it's a bottle of wine. Because you give me chips and wine, and I'm just brilliant. I mean, I am so freaking funny when you give me chips and wine. And so anyway, so that's how I move my way through the book.
Well, and also, are you pretty much writing one Stephanie book a year? Is that pretty much how it's shaking out right now? But you also have a lot of other books going on, and you've co-written several books. And talk a little bit about the book, how you decided to co-write some of those other books.
Co-authors. I have a lot more ideas than time. And sometimes, and I love Stephanie, and I love writing the plums, but it's nice to get out and go into a new world every now and then. It keeps me fresh. When I go into some other world, some other heroine's head, and I come back to Stephanie, I always know a little bit more about Stephanie. I always enjoy it a little bit more coming back. So I've tried little mini-series, like the Wicked books, and I've tried co-authors. And the two co-authors, Lee Goldberg and Phoebe Sutton, that I worked with, I have known for a long time. And it was one of those things, where Lee and I were sitting in a bar, and we said, hey, wouldn't it be fun to write a book together? And then we did. But he's a television guy. Both of those guys are television guys. They write sitcom, they're A-list showrunners. And so both of them eventually decided to go back to television. But writing with a co-author is like a whole other thing, because writing is such a solitary experience. I sit in, and I have total control over that when I write the plums. This is my world that I'm creating. And then you're working with a co-author who does really a lot of the heavy lifting. And I come in and I sprinkle some fairy dust and make sure that all of the rules are held, because I have rules like you can't kill cats and dogs. The hamster lives forever. So and then the book is done, and the book goes out there, and my name is on it, with Lee's name, and it's sort of strange. I mean, it's an odd feeling. It's like wearing somebody else's underpants, right? It's like just a little uncomfortable.
Well, let's talk a teeny bit about the recovery agent, too. And that's a new heroine, Gabriella Rose, right? And she's a treasure hunter / insurance fraud tracker downer. So that book came out last year, right?
Gabriella Rose. I have always wanted to do a big adventure story. I mean, I love being in Trenton and being in the world of Plum. But I grew up reading comic books. I mean, I am not a real literary person. I'm not especially well read. But I know every adventure that Scrooge McDuck ever went on. And that, it really gave me a love for the adventure novel now. So I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, to get time to finally go out of Trenton and do some worldwide, exciting jungle exploring, underwater scuba diving thing. And that's what Gabriella Rose is all about. I just signed a contract for more of those. We're working real hard to, thank you. We're working really hard to try to get it to television. You never know with the West Coast, but it looks like there's some interest in it. I think that would be fantastic. And one of the things that I really like about that series is one of my favorite men has always been Diesel from the Wicked series. And I wrote, I don't know what, 3 of those, and I just ran out of time. I've never been able to get back to it. But from time to time, because I really like Diesel, I've snuck him into the Plum series. And so when I decided to do this other adventure story series, I created a guy named Rayford Jones, and he's a lot like Diesel. He's, he's just this big, scruffy, lovable, sarcastic guy who, just kind of takes his clothes off and leaves them on the floor and walks away. Not saying anything about my husband now, but a lot of us know this guy. So I brought him into that series, and he has this love-hate relationship with Gabriella Jones. They're divorced. It was a messy divorce. They love each other. They hate each other. They argue all the time. And so it's been a lot of fun for me because I love that kind of tension. You know, I grew up on Moonlighting. I don't know if you guys watched Moonlighting, but that was one of the things that I looked at when I was creating the Plum series and creating this one, because I loved that business between Matty Hayes and Bruce Willis. David, yeah.
Great. Well, I have one more question for you. So if any of you are ready to start asking questions, go ahead and start lining up at the microphones. My final question to you is, we probably have some aspiring writers in here. And based on your experience, what advice would you get? Just a good tip you would give them.
Wow, a good tip for aspiring writers. Are you sure you want to do this? It's hard. It is very hard to get published today. It's the world's best job. I would be writing even if I wasn't published, because when you start writing, if you're a writer, you just get hooked. You love creating a world of your own. You love going in and living with those characters. But I think that you have to really persevere. You have to look at it like a job. If you had a job, if you worked at 7-Eleven, you would show up every day and you would put your time in. And trying to write a book is a little bit the same way. There's something about having that consistency of trying to find some kind of momentum so that you're working at it on a regular time. And if you want to do it, you just don't give up. I think it helps if you join writers groups. If you're women and you're writing Romance Writers of America, there are mystery organizations, and it's nice to have a peer group. If you're at the point where you're trying to be published, you can go to conferences and actually interface with agents and editors and get some help that way. And so, and you just keep at it. It's very hard to get published. And even after you're published, it doesn't always pay really well in the beginning. I sold my first book for $2,000, and I just sort of inched my way up from there. I mean, I was not an overnight success. Book 7 in the Plum series was the first one to make #1 on the New York Times list. But I had done 12 romance novels and 6 Plums before that book. And so I just, you just keep trying to make some headway. And we have a question.
Great, yeah. Go ahead.
My question is, with the Stephanie Plums, you have this major map on your wall of all the streets and where all the cars blew up and smashed. Because in your writing, you talk about, we're going to take this road over here, and then we're going to go over there, and, I can't follow any of those, but I imagine that they're all called correct. So you have this huge map.
Yeah, no. Well, you know, I know the area because I grew up in that area, and my parents lived there. After I was an adult and I was married, we would still go back. So I know a lot of the area, and I do have a map, you know, that I check from time to time. And when I first started the series, what I realized was, you know, I did a lot of research, and I tried to find where the places were. And after a while, I realized that, you know, it wasn't so important, that what people really cared about were the characters and what they were doing. And I mix it up because I don't want anybody suing me because, you know, people are arriving at their house thinking that it's where the Plums live. So I fictionalize a little bit.
Aspiring writers just got a book published, and
Can you
pretty
come in
excited
a little
about it.
closer to the mic?
I just
That's great.
wrote a book and got it published, self-published, and I wanted to ask you, how long is the longest time that you've gone without consistent, disciplined writing, like family events, deaths, divorces, whatever, and how do you get out of that?
I don't know, about 15 minutes. I mean, here's the thing. I don't believe in writer's block. You know, everybody talks about writer's block. Some days I have ideas and I get a good chunk on the computer screen, and other days it's like, you know, brain fog and there's nothing happening there. I try to always get at least one sentence down every day. Even if it's not a good sentence, it's something there on the screen. And I think, you know, I'm fortunate because I have time to do this. I have all day now. When I first started writing, I wrote when the kids were in school. Now, because of the success that I have, I can afford to have people help me, and I just have writing as a full-time job. But, I mean, I go through long periods where I really struggle. But I don't ever call it writer's block, you know. I just call it, you know, it's not happening yet. And I find that if you just keep thinking about it, if you just keep going down different roads mentally, put them down on a piece of paper, you know, get a pad, just start writing, and sometimes you do that for 2-3 days, but eventually you break through and you get an idea, because something happens when you sleep at night. Like, I go to bed at night with a steno pad, and I write in the steno pad what happened, what I wrote that day, and then I project where I'm going the next day. I outline a day, maybe 2 days ahead. And then when I get up in the morning, somehow, some magical way, I've gotten ideas accumulated in my brain, and I have stuff to put down on the computer screen. So, so that's, you know, that's my method.
That's great. Okay, we'll go here.
I just wanted to say that I have enjoyed the times that Ranger has gotten Stephanie to go with him and help him out on some of his assignments. And she shows the intelligence, even though in the everyday to day, she doesn't seem to be knowing what she's doing. But when she's been, like when she went to Atlantic City with Ranger, she really contributed to him and his goal for that particular trip. Mm-hmm. So I just would like to ask that we see a little more of that. I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, and in this this book that's out now, there is a certain amount of self-realization for Stephanie, because I felt like that as well. I felt like, you know, she's been bumbling along for, I don't know, 28 years. And the reality is that she's actually gotten to be pretty decent at what she does. And I thought it was time for her to realize that, to understand that. Now, is she ever going to be Ranger? No. But she is better. She has acquired skills. She has gotten a certain amount of confidence in herself. And that was one of the things that I felt was important to put in this book. So we're all on the same page on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go here, and then we'll come back over to...
Okay. What was your inspiration for Bob?
Bob the dog. Okay, well, I'm a real animal person, you know, and I have a little dog. And when I was writing, I was living in a neighborhood. I had a very, very close friend next door, and his name was Bob, and he wanted to be in the book, and he. And so he had a dog that he just dearly loved. So I decided to make Bob a dog. And so he was very excited about this. And he couldn't wait to read it. And he got the book and he read the book and he came over and he was like, God, you know, I think this is great and I love the dog. But did you really have to make Bob smelling everybody's butt?
That's great. Okay, back over here.
I lived in the Berg. The directions are perfect.
Okay, did you hear
What
that?
was... can you repeat that,
I
please?
said I lived in the Berg.
You
and
lived in
the
the-
directions and streets are spot on.
Oh!
Okay. The other thing is that I couldn't get on a plane after 9/11. I had to go someplace like a month or two later without one of your books, even if I had to buy hard copy. Okay. And the other thing is, what's with the cookie jar and the gun? Is that a bio? The
Okay.
cookie jar and the bun. The cookie jar and the
You
gun.
know what? There's an echo over here, and I'm having a hard time hearing you. So, yes, so here, come on. Here. The cookie jar.
And the gun.
The gun and the cookie.
Leaving it.
Yes,
Jar. Is that bio?
yes, yes, it is. The gun and the cookie jar, because I'm not a gun person. When I started the series, I hung out with cops, and you know, they had me carrying a gun, and you know, with the pepper spray and the stun gun and everything. But I'm still not a real gun person. So for Stephanie, it was, you know, because she is in some ways like me. She's not a gun person either. I actually have that brown bear cookie jar in my house, but it doesn't have a gun in it. And you know, in the first book, in One for the Money, Stephanie is attacked by Benito Ramirez, this horrible boxer guy, and she's carrying a gun in her purse, but she doesn't pull the gun out. She hits him with the purse, and because you know, that's what I would do. Yeah.
I was just curious about Big Blue. Is that a vehicle that has been in your life, somebody you know owned? Because growing up, we had a big blue vehicle that we called Big Blue.
Right, the car, the 52 Buick. Okay, I learned how to drive on that beast. I hated that car. You know, all my friends had cool Impalas, you know, and I had this disgusting baby blue and white Buick that was absolutely not cool. And I learned how to drive on that car. It didn't have power steering. It didn't have power brakes. It was just, you know, and so I've given it to Stephanie. But the good thing about it is, I mean, remember those days when cars were made out of metal? I mean, it's indestructible. You can't do anything to that car. And so it's this magical car for Stephanie. All the other cars get trashed, blown up, run over by garbage trucks, everything. But not the Buick. Buick is just, you can't kill the Buick.
Hi, good afternoon. When I first started reading your books, my coworkers and I would kind of guess who in Hollywood would play the different parts. I know there was a movie made, but who would you cast for the different parts?
Okay, so the question is, who would I cast for the different parts in the Plum series? I don't, I have in my mind an image of who these people are, but I don't necessarily have a lot of actors that I would place in them. For years, I thought Sandra Bullock would have been a great Stephanie.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that ship sailed. So then I thought, and still do, I thought Anna Kendrick would be great. I don't know if Anna Kendrick is the woman who was in the a cappella movies. And I thought that would be good because I could have Stephanie the musical. And the men, I have never been able to find precisely the right person. I thought the movie was very miscast.
Yes.
I actually like Katherine Heigl as Stephanie. I thought she did a pretty decent job, but I didn't think the men were cast very well.
So my second question.
Oh, second question here.
If you were going to have lunch with someone, dead or alive, who would it be?
If I what?
If you wanted to have lunch with someone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, if I wanted to have lunch with someone dead or alive, who would it be? Wow. Dead or alive, huh? Oh, well, I'd want someone alive, first off.
Okay, we have another question here.
Diesel's really fun, but there's like this mystical thing behind him in the last book that I read that I just wondered more about that. That there's like this evil thing hanging out somewhere, and I kind of got lost in that. And I wondered if there was more of it somewhere. Are there bad guys behind Diesel, or
What?
am I making sense at all? Did I read the same book?
No, I'm having trouble hearing. There's something,
Yeah,
right? There's
a
an
little bit
echo.
echo.
It's
very echoey. Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
It sounds loud, but go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do you want me to just come at you?
Yep.
It's about Diesel, and there's this mystical thing he
Yes.
kept talking about who he was working for, and I don't know who that is. And
I don't either.
next book.
It's fiction. Yeah, Diesel, and there is a sort of, I wanted to write about some special characters. I didn't want them to be angels. I didn't want them to be superheroes. I just wanted them to have special powers. And so that is what came with the Wicked series and with Diesel. And Diesel actually started in the Plum series, in the Between the Numbers books, as this special guy. And we don't exactly know what his powers are. We know that, in my mind, Diesel in the Wicked series is a kind of bounty hunter like Stephanie, but he's a bounty hunter for people of his own kind, these special people who have special skills. And the skills could be with Lizzie, where she bakes cupcakes, or it could be some guy could be good at bending spoons. They don't have to be good skills. But Diesel is a very powerful character, actually. He has some kind of electric deal going. He can open doors. He can eliminate people, take their skills away. So I don't know. And he belongs to this organization, this very loose organization of special people. So that's, and so now you don't know any more than you did in the beginning, right?
Okay, I think we can do one more question here.
I love Stephanie's mom and how she heals with food and brings the family together, and how frustrated she is all the time. Yet she's so resilient and wonderful. Can you tell me more about Stephanie's mom?
More about Stephanie's mom. Yeah, Stephanie's mom is the adult in the family. Grandma Mazer and Stephanie are kind of, on the same plane. And poor long-suffering Stephanie's mom. She's holding this whole family together. That's why she drinks a lot. I did a special story about Stephanie's mom. It was one of those little edition stories. Sometimes B&N wants you to do a special edition for them, and you do like a 10-page story. And I did a little story about Stephanie's mom. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly where it went. I think we might be putting it into the back of one of the books again. But it was that Stephanie's mom, she used to always iron. When she got frustrated, she would iron. She would iron the same shirt for hours if she had to. That was her way of calming herself. So she got tired of ironing and she took up knitting. And because this is what I do, I knit. See, like I don't really have any hobbies, and I don't have any sports. I don't like to sweat. So it might have been my problem with romance. I don't know, But anyway, I knit, and because I realized that when you knit, if you're tense, you can't get the needle in. But I don't want to knit anything because then that would be too serious. I'd have to think about what I was doing. So when my husband watches television at night and he watches football and hockey, I knit. But I only know how to knit. I don't know how to purl. And I knit scarves. And so they're about this wide, and when they get to be 27 feet, you think I'm kidding, no. Yeah, when they get to be about 27 feet, they're unwieldy, to carry around, so then I put them aside and I start knitting again. And I gave this to Stephanie's mom in this little special story that you're going to have to hunt around to find it. I'm not sure what book it went into.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's good. Well, before we wrap up, I want to let you all know we're going to thank Janet here in a minute, but I have some instructions about the book signing, so we're going to thank Janet, and she's going to go to the signing table while I give you those instructions. But Janet, we really want to thank you for being here. This has been such a treat, and we're so excited that you're in the world sharing Stephanie Plum with the rest of us.